The United States, European Union and other Western nations have pledged to support efforts to secure justice and accountability for Myanmar's Rohingya Muslims. 5 years back, on this day, Myanmar's military began a brutal crackdown against the Rohingya, forcing some 740,000 of them to flee to neighboring Bangladesh. The UN later said Myanmar's actions were driven by genocidal intent. The United States earlier this year called it a flat-out genocide. Most of the Rohingya ended up as refugees near the town of Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh. It now holds 1 million refugees. And Bangladesh is hoping they will all eventually return to their home country. But the Rohingya remain in limbo, caught between an impossible dream to return to Myanmar and their reality as refugees in Bangladesh. DW's Zubair Ahmed reports.
Rohingya children learning Myanmar's national anthem. Even though their home country does not want them, in this school, in a Bangladeshi camp, the refugees are trying to hold on to their culture and identity. The children also learn subjects such as English, math and life skills. Many fled here after the Myanmar military started a brutal campaign against the Rohingya in 2017. Mishara crossed the border with her family 5 years ago.
I like life skills the most. I wake up in the morning and go to school. After school, I go home, and in the afternoon, I go play. When I grow up, I want to teach.
Mishara lives with her parents and 5 siblings in a hut in the hills inside Balukhali camp. Her mother, Tasmida Begum, is concerned about her kids' future. She recalls what she had to leave behind when she fled.
Now that they are growing up, I'm stressed when I think about their future. When I think about my homeland, I get emotional. We were well off. We did not have our own land, but we had a cow, 3 goats, and a house.
Her husband, Mohammad Shafi, used to work in the farmlands back in Myanmar, but here he hardly has any work. The couple each lost family members when the military went on a rampage.
At first we did not want to leave. Then they opened fire and people were killed. When we left, they burned our houses to the ground. We thought there's no point staying here, we should flee to Bangladesh.
They barged into the area and shot my brother to death. Then we left and they burned our houses. While we were fleeing toward the border, they killed my brother-in-law.
There are countless stories like these among camp residents. People here are living in limbo, a limbo that seems to never end.
5 years after what has been called the biggest mass exodus of Rohingya to Bangladesh, they want to rebuild their lives. But they have limited education and they can't go out of these camps. Many of them tried to flee to other neighboring countries, but it seems nobody really wants them.
Bangladesh does provide support to the refugees, but they also stress that the Rohingya must never forget they will have to leave one day.
We are giving them humanitarian aid. Our goal is that they will return to their homeland. For example, in the learning centers, they sing their national anthem. They are being told that this is not your country. You should go back.
Shafi and Tasmida say they know this very well. They long for their motherland. But getting back there will require much more than teaching them a patriotic song.
Joe Wayne is the Executive Director of the Burma Human Rights Network. He joins me now from London. Mr. Joe Wayne, 5 years on from their exodus from Myanmar, are the Rohingya the world's forgotten refugees?
Thanks for having me today. Yes, exactly. This is what's happening today, what you see. After 5 years, these people, the plight of the Rohingya peoples are almost forgotten because of the different crises in the world today. But it doesn't mean the Rohingya genocide problem is solved. These people are genocide survivors. They are traumatized. They need help. And I see that the Bangladesh government has helped them, and that's really grateful. but not allowing them the education is killing their souls. So international community need to highlight on that matter. Rohingya children are now growing without education, which is very, very dangerous.
I'd just like to talk about the point of genocide that you did raise. I mean, that is a word that has been used by the United States as well. What are the chances you think anyone will be held to account?
I mean, this is the political will of international community. Look, international justice system is not the legal system in countries. It is most about the politics involved here. So the political will of international community is very key here, to key matter here and key factor here. So we need international community need to understand that failure to send these the genocidal generals to ICC is allowing them to commit further crimes. As you see that if we take action effectively in 2012, we won't see genocide in 2017. But we failed to take any action, even in genocide event in 2017. That also allowed this general to kill everyone in the country today, like crime against humanity they are committing now. So each event we fail to take action, it's also giving opportunity to that criminal to commit another crimes with more people, and the crimes that they are committing. You see that not only one location; it's a nationwide.
Right.
So that's what impact all the regional stability and safety and security and stability as well.
Now, the Myanmar government has agreements with both Bangladesh and the United Nations to accept the return of the Rohingya. But this hasn't yet happened. Do you think it'll ever happen?
Because that is what we human rights organization always crying about the international community to try to tell the any agreement the military is they never commit any agreement. Look how many agreement they have with Bangladesh government to repatriate the Rohingya people, for those who fled in previous years and decades. Until now, it never happened. So the diplomatic approach with the military regime is always failed. We cannot negotiate with them. These are the criminal thugs. They need to be punished. They need to be brought to justice. They are not supposed to shake hand with the UN leaders and any international leaders. That is very damaging. We condemn that.
You're painting a pretty grim picture. Therefore, I have to ask you, is there at all a possibility of a secure future for the Rohingya in Myanmar?
As long as one thing we need to understand that Rohingya peoples, they are people who has determination, courage. They have faith. Right. They have a unity. We need to build up these people. These people has been suffered several decades, right? Even at least 6-7 decades under the military regime, oppressed by the military regime. Everything has been taken away from them. So we need to build up this community. International community need to do their best, to try their best to build up the Rohingya community to stand up on their own. They will find their way to return to home. They have a capability for that.
All right. We'll have to leave it there for the time being, but thank you so much for joining us today. Jo Win, Executive Director of the Burma Human Rights Network. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Neighboring India hasn't been as supportive as Bangladesh towards Rohingya refugees. Some 40,000 of them live in India, but officially India does not recognize them as refugees, even if the UN does. And that's because India is neither a signatory to the 1951 Refugee Convention, nor does it have a national refugee policy. The result? Constant harassment for the Rohingya.
A makeshift shelter in southern Delhi. This is how most exiled Rohingya live across India. In tents or camps with no access to basic amenities. They're called the most persecuted minority in the world by the UN. The Indian government, though, has a different name for this community. Illegal foreigners. Sanjita Begum was forced to flee from Myanmar years ago. She makes it clear that she and her community are refugees.
I'm 29 and I've spent 22 of those years as a refugee. I have 2 kids who often ask me where their home is, where their country is. I cannot answer them.
She says it pains her when her community is called illegal migrants and at times even criminals and a threat to national security. These terms were back in the spotlight recently. The housing minister announced India would be moving the Rohingya to proper flats. The Home Ministry quickly denied that was the case. Most of the people living here have refugee cards given to them by the UNHCR, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. But those cards have barely helped them. It also does not help that India does not have a national law or a policy to deal with refugees. It is also not a signatory to international laws that outline refugee rights. Lawyer Colin Gonsalves, who has represented Rohingya Muslims in the past, says it is not entirely correct that the country does not have a legal framework for refugees.
We have a perfectly legal framework in terms of the orders of the Supreme Court of India. Under our constitution, a judgment of the Supreme Court operates like a statute that has the same status as a law made by Parliament. We have lovely judgments of our Supreme. So we have a perfect system. India doesn't want to formalize that system.
That is what upsets Mohammad Haroon. He has been living in this camp for 12 years. He's close to tears when he shows us his refugee card and the long-term visa. The Indian government gave him the visa, proof that he has been living here legally.
We asked the government to let us stay here in the way we have been living for so long. If the government here and the United Nations can help us to get our rights back in Myanmar, we will be ready to go back.
Like Haroon, many other Rohingya here have nearly given up hope several times. Their main wish remains that at least their children get a chance at a better life.
So Bangladesh stresses that the Rohingya will eventually have to go home, but their home country, Myanmar, doesn't want them. How long is Bangladesh prepared to support them?
Well, Bangladesh has been supporting or giving this kind of humanitarian aid to these people for a long time. Like the latest mass exodus occurred in 2017. Since then, like more than 1 million people are already living here in these camps. You can see right behind me. So the thing is, I talked to the people, to the officials, Bangladeshi officials. They say that they are providing this support. They will do it, but they want them to go back, and they want to expedite the process, the repatriation process. And for that, already there is a task force that is working on a list of the Rohingya migrants. The list they have provided, it's a list of around 830,000 Rohingya people. They have already submitted it to the Myanmar government. So they hope that this repatriation process will go forward, whereas before twice this repatriation attempt have been failed. So they want, the foreign minister already said that they want it to be expedited.
Now, today there were, I understand, protests by some of the Rohingya refugees there, and you were there. What are they calling for?
Well, there are 34 camps inside this big. You can see just behind me, like there are 34 separate camps, and in every camp there was a protest. There was a gathering of these people. They say that they want justice. They want the Myanmar authorities to be held responsible for what they have done at least 5 years ago. And they say that they want their citizenship and ethnicity, recognition of their ethnicity back in Myanmar. They want to go back, but they want a security insurance. They want safely go back to their country.
DW's Zubair Ahmed reporting there from Bangladesh. Thank you very much. Tom Andrews is the UN's Special Rapporteur for Human Rights in Myanmar and joins us now from Hartford in the US. Welcome. Tom, you have criticized the UN for not doing enough to help the Rohingya in comparison to the international response to Ukrainian refugees, for example. What more should other countries be doing?
There's a tremendous amount that can be doing. First of all, the level of humanitarian aid that are being provided by the international community is well below what is the fundamental requirements of these people. So from a humanitarian point of view, this is extremely important. But the key here, I think, is accountability. There's 5 years after these horrific attacks, no one has been held accountable for these acts. And as a result of that, I believe the military junta has been emboldened to commit even more crimes, war crimes, crimes against humanity. So in my view, it is critically important for the international community to engage in coordinated, focused, targeted sanctions, cut off the revenue flow to the junta, cut off the weapons to the junta, and engage in accountability mechanisms in a much more robust way than what the international community has been willing to do, starting with the Security Council, the International Criminal Court, the International Court of Justice, the case that the Gambia has brought forward to make it clear to the world this is a genocide. Some nations have joined, most nations have not. It is important that there be an organized, focused, coordinated effort, the likes of which we have yet to see.
Now, you've also said that atrocities are still being committed with impunity by the regime in Myanmar. Do you have any examples you've come across?
Yes. Just today, I've been speaking to people inside of Rakhine State. They're telling me that the attacks against Rohingya people have increased. There are 600,000, more than 600,000 Rohingya living in great danger in Rakhine State right now. 130,000 of them are living in what can aptly be described as open-air prisons, concentration camps. Conditions are just absolutely horrific. A man told me that if the world cannot help them and their plight inside of Myanmar, then please just bomb these camps. It would be better for our family to die underneath a bomb than to continue to live in these conditions. Systematic torture, murder. We're recording sexual violence against people inside of Myanmar right now, including members of the Rohingya community and other communities. So this is continuing with impunity, and I'm afraid to say, based upon what I'm learning even just within an hour ago, that the intensity of these attacks and this impunity is increasing literally as we speak.
Tom Andrews, the UN's Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in Myanmar. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.